welcome to our Top Professional Development event. I'm Marsha Chan and the co-founder and co-coordinator of Teaching of Pronunciation Interest Group here at CATESOL. And as you know, we like to have the participants introduce yourselves in the chat box. You can tell us who you are and maybe where you teach or where you're logging in from. I know nowadays it's hard to know whether people are in their workplace or in their home place or in their not so home remote place. So lots of things are going on today. Our program for today is called Online Programs for Segmental and Suprasegmental Pronunciation. Our top coordinators are me, Randy Reitmeyer, who is unable to be here today. He's my co-coordinator, and Patrick Rozek, who is our assistant coordinator. So wave your hands to say hello to everybody, Patrick. And we are part of CATESOL. And as you know, as your CATESOL member, you have lots of options and lots of benefits for being a member. I think most of the people who signed up for today's session are members, but we may have somebody who's not yet a member, who's thinking about it. Well, we don't know, but there are lots of reasons why being a member of CATESOL is a great thing, because we are really a very vibrant group and our professional development has expanded greatly since we went on lockdown a couple of years ago, and we've been doing a lot with our interest groups, our levels, and chapters. We also would like to share with you some things that we have done together at our business meeting. In our last conference, we shared some information about what we've done in the past year. So you want to know, what is TOP? What do we do? What have we done? What are some of the offerings we've had for professional development? I've sent you a link in the chat which tells about that, which gives you a review of webinars we have been to. And as a member of CATESOL, you have the freedom to go to our website and go into the section called Online Training and find webinars, not only for TOP, but also for other interest groups and levels that have recorded them. Not everybody records everything, but typically for TOP interest group events, we record them to make them available for you to review or for others who are not able to attend live. And we do give out surveys every year to find out what our membership wants to know or has suggestions for. And so in the chat, I also put the 2021 survey results. So you are more than welcome to take a look at those and to try to keep us on track, because we are trying to find and get together with people who would like to do presentations or lead meetings that will help benefit the TOP interest group. If you're not already aware of it, we do have a Padlet, which I will also put into the chat box, and it will give you lots of things about the purpose of our TOP. You get to meet our coordinators now and in the past. We have links to our recorded presentations. We talked to you about some presentations that we've done at the live conferences. And then we also give you access to the other interest group Padlet. So that's just a brief introduction. Some of you will know, and maybe you received the information about this event through our message board. And our message board idea is easy to remember: CATESOL TOP at catesol.org. So don't be shy. If you have a question, you have a comment, you have something to share, whether it's in question form or it's in statement form, I invite you to enter that. You can do this from any email client that you use and just type that in, and then this will go out to all of us who are members, all of us who are opted into or subscribers of the Teaching of Pronunciation interest group on CATESOL. Another way to get to it is if you go to the website and go to communication message boards, you'll also find a way to enter your information or to just see what others have entered by going in that direction. So today we're talking about just a few selected online programs for segmental and suprasegmental pronunciation. I would like to introduce AM English interactive online programs, and I'll let you be clear from the beginning that I am not the author of this, but I have been a user of this really interesting program. Is very rich, and in fact, it is a suite of many programs. You can see that there's pronunciation in English, writing in English, idioms in English, read aloud ebooks, and vocabulary builder. So these are, I think, 40 some odd different online programs. And I became familiar with these many decades ago. Kathy Hunt is one of our teachers of English as a second language, and I knew her from way back, and she was doing fabulous work in terms of pedagogy and putting together programs that students can use. And at Mission College, where I used to teach, where I taught for 30 some odd years, we became familiar with the materials that were being developed by amenglish.com. And we used them in our ESL lab. And of course, things moved away from in lab to remote teaching. And so now the programs that are available are all available remotely. We're going to look at only one category today, and that is the category of pronunciation in English. And for this, I've invited David Hotz to come and do a presentation on what it is, what the different levels do, how to work through it, how we can make use of it, how we can, as teachers, know what our students are doing. So I think it's a good time for David to turn on the camera and take over the sharing.
Oh, hi. Marsha, did you want me to talk about the programs now? I thought you were going to talk about the other ones first, or what's the order you'd like?
Go ahead and do, you're going to talk about the pronunciation in English. Go ahead and give us a demo of that, okay?
All right, will do.
Thank you.
Let's see. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this morning, and please chime in at any time if you've got questions or comments, and I'll just sort of go through the top level review of these items. I know for teachers that there are some other resources that we have that you may not be aware of, and I'll walk through the programs in sort of an overview fashion here. But we do have lesson plans available for each of these programs, in fact, for all the programs. And so this is something that we can send to you. And the idea is that obviously you know what you're doing, you know what you need to do, but you may not be as familiar with this program as you might like. And time, of course, is always short. So you want to try to get as much as you can as quickly as possible. So there's some kind of overview here. This is for the intermediate level. And then basically this shows you kind of how the navigation works, which I'll show you in just a moment here. But then we get into actual lesson plans. So like here's, and obviously being experienced teachers, you're going to pick and choose, but you might find some things that would be useful to getting students more familiar with the content. You know, we used to call it getting past the shrink wrap when we sold products that were, you know, CD-ROM based and everything, and everybody would buy it and yeah, I'm going to get to that as soon as I can. But then, you know, they're not familiar with it. And while we pride ourselves, we think we have a wonderful user interface, you know, that sort of thing. But if you're not familiar with it, it just may not be that comfortable till you get comfortable with it. And so this, if you can integrate portions of this into your lessons and do it more effectively and show people where you want them to be working, then I think it would you know, just further your cause. But to go into the content here, there's two levels, high beginning plus and intermediate plus. And we also did a whole medical version of this content. So the lectures are the same in the medical version, and you'll see a lecture here in just a second. But what we did was and it's more visible in the intermediate level, but we took the practice activities and put them into a medical context. So we went out and interviewed, nurses and emergency rooms. This is way before COVID, because you couldn't do that now. But we went out and talked to all these people and just gathered authentic language and then put them into the content here. So I'll show you the intermediate just to show you the quick distinction here. But this is the high beginning level, and the first lecture activity is first activity is a lecture. So I'll let that play for a few lines. Here we go.
In English, every word has one or more syllables.
So that's the lecture. That's Kathy, and everything that she's saying is on the screen here. So you can see those were the first couple of words. And then we do have language translations for the text. So if you've got lower level students and this helps them get access, of course, we want everybody immersed in English, but sometimes they need a little bit of assistance. So you can look at the text in that language. The audio is going to remain in English, but they can see the text in that
A syllable always has a vowel sound.
So that's the lecture. This has been reviewed by ETS at one point in our history, and they actually approved all of this content for use with the TOEFL and TOEIC tests, and we did have that there. So I'm going to leave this in English. That's much easier for me, but we do have all those other languages. So you can see Arabic even. We did the reverse translation there. And then here's Japanese. Okay, so then the practice activity follows a lecture.
Click on each word and listen. Then click on the number of syllables you hear.
Strategy.
So you hear the word, and then you're looking for the number of syllables. And if you click here on 4, you hear the cuckoo sound, which is an incorrect response. When you get the correct response, the number pops right into the box there. So you're getting instant feedback. And then we have the record activity for students to record their own voice. So if you click on the hourglass, that's a good navigation element for you. This will take you to the index, and then you can see, you can go to any practice activity directly. So we looked at the first lecture, and then we looked at the first practice activity that follows. Then you see there's just more content here for each of the practice. So lots and lots of repetition opportunities. And then we have many reviews in here for people to just check their comprehension, and then the next lecture.
In verbs that end in T or D, the ED is pronounced as an extra syllable.
And then the practice activities follow that. So this gets a little more interesting when we get past the syllable level to stress in words. And this, I'd say this is kind of the heart of this level. So what is stress?
In English, every word has one syllable that is stressed more than the others.
So then we have the examples: medical, 3 syllables; medical, not medical; electronics, 4 syllables, and then so on. And then I'm going to skip past the next lecture and go to the practice activity that follows this level.
Listen for the stressed syllable. Click on the number of syllables. Then click on the vowel sound of the stressed syllable.
So you can play the word.
Commuter.
We're reinforcing syllable counts, so the same structure here, so the familiarity will help if they've gone through the first chapter. Incorrect, correct response. Now you're listening for the stressed vowel. You can play it again.
Commuter.
Or you can click down here and play it again.
Commuter.
And then you click on a vowel, incorrect and correct. And then when you get the correct answer, you're getting instant feedback on that stressed vowel or stressed syllable. And then you can do your own recorded playback and work on matching it. So if you start looking at this chapter, all of this content will be familiar to you. So we have the practices that follow, lots and lots of practice opportunities, sort of a guided practice thing. And then we go into rules for stress in adjective nouns, rules for stress in verbs, rules for in words with suffixes. So the suffix acts like a magnet, and it pulls the stress towards the suffix. And then compound nouns, 2-word verbs, phrasal verbs, So here's the compound nouns.
Compound nouns are nouns with two words inside of them, like software,
And then the practices, you know, really emphasize
Listen
that. So,
for the
homework,
so 2 syllables, first syllable stress. So there's lots and lots of feedback as you're going through the content here. And then if we go past that into phrasal verbs, you know, that's obviously the typically the last syllable.
There are many verbs and prepositions in English that go together. The stress usually falls on the second part in these combinations.
Listen for the stressed step down.
So there's the stress, and so you just practice that. And then as you go farther into the chapter, so I think we were looking at compound nouns, phrasal verbs, practice activity 63. And then as you go farther into this, we've got some practices where you're just distinguishing between a phrasal verb and a compound noun based on what you hear. So let's look at that.
Click on the number to hear the words.
Hang out,
So you can hear that first syllable stress, that's a compound noun.
Strike out.
So that second syllable stress, that's a phrasal verb. So that would block sound for correct and the cuckoo for incorrect, we're keeping that consistent throughout the content here. And then it goes into this activity too. And then later in that chapter, we cover the schwa, or that's the reduced syllable. So, you know, I'm just showing you where things are in this content. Students can navigate wherever they want and just, we don't restrict them to a particular path or pattern here. So we can just allow them to go forward. And this, you know, we're very proud of our content. We think it does a job for the area that it's focused on, but this always is better with an instructor. So if you've got the opportunity to work directly with students, we hope that you can use this to kind of further their activity. So let's go on to the next level. Unless there's any questions, just type in on the chat or unmute yourself and let's hear what you have to say. But other than that, I'll move on to intermediate. So high beginning plus is at word level, stressed syllables versus unstressed syllables. And then, so at the intermediate level, we're at sentence level. So we have stressed words and unstressed words, and then we work on intonation and then rhythm, which is all the more advanced activities. So if you mouse over the number, you can see the subsections of that. And if you go to the magnifying glass, you get a very detailed review. So this is kind of a quick overview here. So you can go to the first practice activity, our first lecture.
In sentences, the basic stress pattern is usually created by stressing content words.
So you can see the lecture is nice and clear. And one of the things that we did when we taped that is that the author used a video ear prompt so that she didn't have to look at a teleprompter because there's way too much to memorize. So all these lectures and everything. So what we have is really nice eye contact with the camera. And we've had good feedback over the years that students feel like the teacher is talking directly to them. You know, and this teacher, of course, never gets tired, so she can redo that lesson anytime on demand. And then, you know, we have the practices that follow.
Click on the number to hear the sentence. I need the report by 5.
So in this activity, you're just identifying the stressed words versus the unstressed words in a sentence. And then they light up and you can do your own recorded playback. So let's go to the magnifying glass to look at the index. And you can see we looked at the first practice following the first lecture. And then you can see we introduced focus words. So that's the word that gets the most stress of all. And in the focus word activity, after we go over the lecture,
There's usually one word. Listen to the following sentence. All the words that carry stress are colored. Click on the number 1 stressed word, the focus word in this sentence.
So in these activities, we've already marked the stressed words, and now we're asking them to identify the focus word.
Vancouver, Canada is a beautiful city.
So that's the stressed words. When you click on it, the other ones don't light up again. And so it gets emphasized and then it is underlined. So you can use that for your own practice. So a couple
Listen
of
to the
examples,
following
and then
sentences.
I need to correct that mistake.
and then you can use that for your own recorded playback. So as we go on with stress in sentences, we have the focus words, and then of course, oftentimes there's different thought groups in the sentence. So each of those will have its own focus word. And so we practice
Sometimes
that.
there's, listen to the following sentence. He's a fisherman and he owns the boat.
And so that lights up, so you can use that as your own recorded playback. So that's stress in sentences. And then at intonation level, okay, this is what, gives interest and has a lot more meaning. So we have a lecture about what is intonation.
Speech, like music, has pitch changes that create a melody.
So that's intonation.
There are
Then you
two steps to this practice.
I had to work overtime 3 weeks in a row, so next week I'm taking off early.
And so you identify that. So you've got your focus word and the intonation drop at the end of the thought group, and so on. And then you, again, moving through this fairly quickly, we've got intonation with yes, no questions. So that intonation rises at the end of the question. But of course, with information questions, as you well know, the intonation actually drops. So we practice that.
Now, listen to these questions that cannot be answered with a yes or no. We call them information questions. Listen to the following question.
How much money do you make?
And so we just, keep emphasizing these types of things. So this is all about, drilling and practicing and so on. And this is where teachers can add amazing value when they have students who are not sure about what they need to be doing. So then we can have you interject and make things much clearer for the student. But you've got this for them to work out independently, and then you can work with their problem areas. So intonation with choices, of course, that drops at the end of the last choice.
When the speaker
Listen to the following.
Which is better, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday?
So there's the focus word and the intonation drop at the end of the choices. Let's see. What the speaker expects. The speaker expectations can change this. So we just try to be as thorough as possible and kind of giving you an idea of new versus old information. So the new information gets emphasized versus the old.
A rise in intonation can highlight the new versus old information. You can hear the intonation focus in the following examples as it changes to highlight the new information. For example, listen. I just found some quarters. How many quarters? 10 quarters.
So there's nice illustrations of these activities. And then the rhythm is all about what we do, native speakers, to make our focus words stand out even more. And that's really helpful to go over the various things like linking with same consonants, reducing H at the beginning of a sentence, and gonna, wanna, have to, has to, did you, would you, could you. Obviously, we can't cover everything, but we can give them nice illustrations that you can then expand on. Reducing connecting words,
Listen to the following.
What's for lunch?
That's what gets reduced, and then reducing connecting of before a consonant. So
I'd like a can of beans. The vacant lot is full of junk.
So there you are. And this is a good time to introduce the medical version, especially at the intermediate level. So when you go, the lecture is the same, but when you go to the practice activities.
Click on the number to hear the sentence.
You should take this antibiotic every 4 hours.
So it's authentic language, and especially useful for the students who are going to be in medical profession. Oh, how did you decide on the accents you used? Well, when we were with ETS, they wanted us to have more than just an American speaker. So we picked British and Australian. We could have done Canadian, but sometimes that difference is pretty subtle. So we just chose those two. And then of course you can tell by the speakers that we have, they're not highly accented. Even our American speaker is from the West Coast, And that's considered the least accented American English. I mean, if we pick somebody from the deep South, I might have trouble understanding, depending on the idioms they might interject also. And so obviously with our British and Australian speakers, we wanted somebody with a very, very mild accent just to give it a little bit of international flavor. So that's the medical version. And then of course you have the teacher guides that we can make available too. And so I'm going to allow time. I know you've got some other content areas you want to go over. So Marsha, is there anything else that you could
I think that one of the things that somebody has asked here, Chris asked this question, is this available to individual teachers only who can share some of these lessons in class with students, or is there an option where an institution could buy this and have students access to it, right?
Yes.
So why don't you talk about the ways that this program is available to
Yeah,
one or many?
Sure. There's one way is you have a administrative account and then student accounts, so that you have the user management system and you can tell what students have done. And that's very useful because if somebody says, oh, I did all my homework, but you go in there and they've only, visited the first introduction. So you know every page that they visited, the time they spent, and if there's scores on various activities, you'll see those scores. That's especially true in writing, the grammar and syntax. And then we have site licenses where you can just purchase them and make them available to students. You can, just make them available as a package.
So that, in other words, these are available. Okay, so there's one way, like there are people in this audience who teach classes in pronunciation, right?
Mhm.
And then there are teachers who are, there are some of us who are learning to become teachers and are doing our CATESOL programs and are figuring out how to teach, are taking a class called Teaching Pronunciation. And there's some of us who work with individuals on a tutorial basis. So we can have a lot of options with this program, right? I mean, so students can, individual learners can buy a subscription to the program,
Mhm.
and teachers can buy a class set. So like if you are the teacher of this of a pronunciation class or a class that deals with pronunciation in some way, no matter whatever you name it, it can be like you order a number of course materials. For example, at Mission College, we would be able to choose this course book or that course book or this software or so forth. So as a teacher, I might want to say, okay, I want to use this course book and this online program, and then that could be what the students purchase, but you have to make some sort of arrangement with AM English to get that package. And then there's also the way the whole college can get it. So for example, at Mission College, there is a site license so that any teacher, mainly in the ESL, can use the product. So some teachers may use it for the pronunciation in English, some may use it for the grammar writing in English, some may use it for it, and so on and so forth, right? So you have a lot of different ways that you offer the product.
Yeah.
Right?
You can get an administrative account for a small group, and it's $10 a year per student. And then if the college wants to do it, for an example, and we would, if you have smaller numbers, we would adjust it. But a Mission College spend $1,000 and they can put up to 300 students into it. So it's certainly not expensive. And there's a question here about the assessment. The assessment is not going to check their voice, and match that, but it's going to check their understanding of every concept that we presented. So at intermediate level, this is the medical version, of course, but it's the same. So you're going to click on the number to hear the sentence, click on the stressed words once to turn them red, click on this, focus word to make it underlined, and then third time if you want to take off the markings. So
resources are becoming scarce.
So those are the stressed words, and then that would be the focus word. And if you said, oh no, I didn't want to do that one, so just click it a third time and you can take all the numbers off. And at the end, we're going to score it. So this is going to go through all the concepts taught in intermediate level. So this is obviously from stress in sentences, and then you're going to go on. So here we went over a whole thing about whether somebody's being positive or negative based on their stress. You know,
They think it's a great idea.
is that a neutral or a negative statement? I'd say it's neutral.
They think it's a great idea.
So that's a negative statement. So it will go through. These are concepts that we are presenting. I skipped that one, of course, but that's in the content here. And then here's the intonation patterns, whether it's a yes, no question or information question. So you're going to click and indicate that's the focus.
Why
word.
did they change this procedure?
You know, and then that's not a yes or a no answer. So it would be a down intonation. And then, anyway, that's how that works. I hope that's enough, but we can go over that more if you have other questions.
I just wrote something in the chat, and I'm not sure. I just wanted to see whether it's accurate or not. Is it? You said so for a site license or a site license or a class license, it would be available for $10 per student per year for the whole for access to the whole range of 46 programs. Is that right?
Yeah, you have everything. So there's the pronunciation programs, there's idioms in English. There isn't time to go over this now, but if you would like to learn a bit more about it, just get in touch with Marsha and she'll arrange a time that I can give you a quick tour. Writing in English covers grammar and syntax. This is the vocabulary builder. It's pretty advanced, but it's really interesting content, poems about all these animals. And then we have natural science facts that come in, and that's how
which are really good if you're working with more advanced students and you're working on different aspects of prosody and rhythm, and it's really beautiful.
And then the read aloud ebooks are 1st through 6th grade reading level, and again, they're in poems, but they have all these great pictures and then questions and so on that come. But there just isn't time to go over that right now.
Right. Well, we won't go over that today because we want to concentrate on the pronunciation. But at the end, I'll give you a link that you can enter your information and say what you'd like, what you're interested in here, and if you'd like, for example, free access to this for a month, and then and if you want to do it just for yourself, that'd be one thing. If you want it to do it with your class and try it out, make sure that they get their individual access. All of that can be set up, but we'll put that at the end.
Okay, thank you, Marsha. Thank you for the time.
Okay, so
I'll be available if there's any other questions.
Yeah, did you want to address this other one? Let's see, from Seth. Are there exercises addressing modifications in stress pattern, intonation, based on differences in intended meaning? For example, Fred stole my watch. She didn't steal my pencil. Fred stole my watch. Fred did, not Anne.
Right. I think those are included in here in different part of the sections here, but they're like speaker expectations, what the speaker expects.
Sometimes the intonation pattern in a question can let you know what answer the speaker expects.
This might cover part of what you're talking about, but there are other sections too.
Click on the number to hear the set. Do you want to work overtime on Saturday or Sunday?
So do you have a choice about working overtime?
Do you have a choice about working overtime?
So no is the correct answer. So you're getting instant feedback. Do you have a choice about the day? Yes. You don't have a question whether you're going to work overtime. Do you have a question about the day? And so that's all baked into the intonation pattern. So there's a whole bunch of practices that cover that.
Sometimes
and then there's some other, just following that, all about intonation and stress shifts and new versus old information. I think that may address part of what you're talking about, but maybe not all, but we can give you a more thorough answer. Marsha, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think what would be really good is because each of us has a different audience in mind, right? Some of us are working with this level and others are working at this level, and this, we have to, and of course we have our own style of teaching. So one of the good things is that we get the opportunity to try it out and ourselves and have our students look at it and see whether they feel comfortable using it or not, and see how much, always in terms of pronunciation, no matter what book or material you use, unless you're working with an extremely highly motivated individual, who you can say, here, go with it. Almost just a huge majority of materials that you use need an interface with the teacher, right? That's why you are there. There's so much about pronunciation that is in the ether, the suprasegmentals especially, that it's really difficult for you to just say, okay, here's a book, now go learn from chapter 1 through 4. It's, you know, most students don't have the ability to do that. So whatever you do, you're able to, you know, make some choices. And this is a program that you don't have to go through kind of lockstep from 1 through 6, right? David, you can go and choose. Can you show us again, like, suppose you are working from some, you already have your own curriculum, right? And you're working on ed endings of the different sounds, or you're working on, you know, whatever it is you're working on, and you want to look up a place in the software where students could get some extra practice. So you find it by, okay, you just pressed on
It's the magnifying glass.
the magnifying glass. So the magnifying glass in this system means open the index. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And
Okay.
the home button, you know, again, we love that interface, but if you don't know what that magnifying glass is.
Well, that's right. I mean, because a lot of us will think a magnifying glass means it's a search, and it yeah. So we don't think about index. So that's good to know. So when you look at the magnifying glass here, it brings up the index, and then it brings up segments. Oh, okay. So like if you're going
so there's the first lecture, and you can even go to practice activity number 6, you know, if you want.
Okay.
But
right.
you can get it. It's a nice place for a good overview if you're looking for something that you wanted to particularly cover or tell somebody to spend some time on, that, like information questions, you know, or what the speaker expects. That was a really good question from Seth about that sort of thing. And so you can really tell them, you can drill in and say, look, spend some time on, you know, practice 37 through 42, you know, and then get back to me with how you're doing it. So
then, like, as a teacher, I might choose a section and choose a practice. Okay, so we're going to do practice number 6 together, and then, you know, for homework, do practices 7 through 14 or something like that. So
what's wonderful as a teacher, you can take these fixed lessons and you can add more value to it. So we're very limited. We only have what we recorded and what the practice activities are all about. But you can interact with the student and tell them where they can glean some value that fits their particular need in here, and then work with them to keep advancing. So it's all about, you know, guided practices supporting your teaching activities. And I think that's how this could be used effectively. And that ability to show this in class just helps people get into the content and show them specifically how to navigate themselves and spend a few minutes so they're not frustrated.
Right, because every program is different, and just sort of getting into any program's interface, it's always a really good idea to have this guided tour, right, to understand how does this one work and what's the best way to get into it for the individual benefit.
Especially if you get into some of the other stuff, you'll find we use the same navigation elements in all the content except the read aloud ebooks, which is even simpler. But so you'll see these elements everywhere that you go. So
okay, all right.
I've really taken a lot of time.
No, that's okay. Are there any other questions or comments that people would, please, we're a small enough group, feel free to either chat if you like to do this, or else open your mic and talk, because we're, you know, we're pronunciation teachers, so we can go ahead and pronounce. Okay, Sophia, I'm working on a proposal and like to know more about the program. Okay, good. So at the end, when I give you all the links to it, you can definitely get signed up for it, and David, I'm sure, will take good care of you in terms of giving you access to whatever you need. Yeah.
Yep.
And Seth, about the accents, yeah, it is interesting. So a lot of programs that we know basically give one kind of accent. So it's good to have different accents. And as we know, I mean, like any of you have traveled, you've heard different accents in English all over the country, no matter where you go. And if you go to a different country, you also hear different accents too. And there are different accents within a particular country. So as David said, there's kind of a bland North American and a bland British Isles one and a bland Australian, so that it gets through to give people an idea that English can be spoken in different ways. And one of the things that do you ever have your students that say, are we learning American English or British English? And I only want to learn fill in the blank. And then they can learn that there are so many similarities and that they can train their ears to hear the different varieties. So I think it's helpful to have different accents, although some of them may not be the ones you'll hear in your local area.
They definitely won't be, but you've heard the phrase England and America, two countries, separated by a common language. Actually, there's more shared than not, but
Yeah.
you can find some impenetrable accents in England that I can't understand what the heck they're saying. But anytime there's a difference in intonation or stress, we always defaulted to American. So we had to work with our British actor to make sure and it was very interesting.
Oh yeah, that must have been interesting.
Necklace in Australia is necklace. And I thought,
Say it again. What was that?
Necklace in Australia is called necklace, so they do a second syllable stress on that one. And I could not get him to change. So we just had to have somebody else record it. And every time he got there, I did it again.
Well, you must have had a controversy.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's what they say instead of controversy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there are differences for sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. Please reach out to Marsha if there's anything we can help you with in terms of seeing if this is useful for you or not. Because you may have all this covered and everything, but if it would be beneficial, then please just reach out to Marsha and we'll set you up.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, David, for those explanations and demonstrating those things. One thing that I think that is really great is that it focused so much on the suprasegmentals, which are the kind of the hidden things that we don't see very well. On paper, we never see them, right? So one of the other things that I thought I'd talk about today is something that is called pronunciation power. And it's been around for a really, really long time. It's not new. And so maybe some of you have already used it. Have any of you used pronunciation power? Okay, going this way or this way. Okay, not many cameras on, so I only see this way. So I'm gonna just tell you a little bit about this. This is another program that Mission College purchased for our lab because we wanted to have sort of a balance between segmentals and suprasegmentals. And pronunciation power is available for individuals. So if you're a teacher, you're doing tutoring, and you have individuals who need to work on sounds, then this is a possible option for working, especially on, all the pronunciation products have a little bit of each, but of course they have their focuses. And this one is more on segmental sounds. And it had, when you buy the online program or you install it, like in a what do you call it, a site license, then you get a lot of other products, the pronunciation power 1 and 2, and it has other stuff like grammar and vocabulary, which is really not as good as some of the other parts that I think we'd like to share today. But what I'm going to start out with is a little video that I put together. So let's see if I can get the right thing up on the screen. And I'm going to do share screen, optimize for video clip, share sound, and hopefully I will get the right piece. Okay, here I am, and I'm going to play it, and hopefully maybe you'll wave your hand to show or thumbs up if it's working right.
Hello, I'm Marsha Chan, also known as the Pronunciation Doctor. In this video, I'm going to present a few aspects.
Okay, I'm going to stop right now. Can you hear and see what you're supposed to? Are you hearing and seeing anything? Thumbs up if you are, or thumbs down if you're not.
Next
Okay, thank you.
of the e-English online learning program. I'll focus on pronunciation power, available from Sunburst Media. When you subscribe, you will get full use of all 8 of the e-English apps 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This interactive program is compatible with any computer with a modern web browser, and it's easy to use. Now, let's take a look at pronunciation power. At the top left of your screen, you'll see a welcome button. Click here to begin. You have many options. Let's take the option of Pronunciation Power 1. Pronunciation Power 1 includes lessons for individual sound work and speech recognition. The lessons include animated graphic side views to learn how each sound is made. There are extensive practice exercises in listening, comparative words, and in word and sentence pronunciation, including intonation for syllable or word stress. All instructions and lessons are available in 12 different languages. The 8-in-1 Interactive Pronunciation Dictionary is included within Pronunciation Power 1. Now let me take you to the lessons. In the lessons, you'll see a side view. On the left side, it's an animation. And you'll see a front view on the right. It's a video. How do you know what sound? There are 2 places, one on the top right and also on the top left. The one on the top left will open up the whole chart of all the sounds. The vowel sounds, the consonant sounds, and the cluster sounds. If you mouse over, you will be able to hear each phoneme, each sound.
E, A, A, U, O, I, ow, R, I, A, ah, oi, y, or, ear, d, r, s, v, b, k, v, w, j, j, g, o, z, sh, ch, thr, sp, st, olt, x, z, qua, sk, old, fs, ts.
Now notice that there are some red and some orange marks. Now let's suppose that I just took the speech test and I see these marks. What do they mean? The red means those are the most difficult sounds for me, according to the speech assessment. The orange ones mean I have some trouble with them. Maybe sometimes I say them correctly, but sometimes not. Or maybe somewhat accurately, but not. If I have no green ones, those would be the ones that I did perfectly. That means I can see the ones I should practice more are red, and the other ones that are orange I also need help with. So the speech test is very useful in giving you feedback on what to practice. Let's look at E. Side view.
E.
In the animation, you can see the movement of the tongue and the jaw. You can also see the yellow full sound. So when it's a full sound, that means it is a continuous sound. E can be spoken as long as you have breath. Please also notice that this horizontal red line turns into a wave.
E.
That means it's a voiced sound. The voice box is used. You vocalize your vocal cords. You vibrate your vocal cords. This is what it looks like from the front. You can see p in this way. Notice the movement of the lips, and notice instead of yellow, you'll see a purple triangle. That shows a released sound. In other words, you stop the sound with your lips. Then you release the puff of air. Notice this horizontal bar doesn't have any wave. That means the voice box is not used. It's a voiceless sound.
You don't vibrate your vocal cords. Here's what it looks like from the front. All right, now let's go to some exercises. Let's look at some exercises for E, and then we'll go here and we'll find out there are a number of exercises. I'm going to show you a few from each category. Let's go to sample words first. Press,
eat,
and play.
eat, easy, team, teeth, tea,
Record your voice by pressing the red circle at the bottom. When you press it, it will show you a message that says the Adobe Flash Player settings, and you should allow your Adobe Flash Player to record your voice. Now, click the button. T, click the button. After I click the button to stop it, I have a play button. I can play my voice and compare it to the model. If I don't know what a word means, I can click on it, and the dictionary brings up the word and a picture. A picture of tea, the word tea,
tea,
a way to record tea, and we also see the plural form,
teas,
teas. And we also see a sentence, I always drink tea in the afternoon. So that's one of the ways that you can access the dictionary. Sample words leads to comparative words. Start.
sheep, ship, clean, clan, neat, knit,
Various pairs of words are noted here. And again, if I want to record, I click on the record button and then the stop button and then the play button. Listening discrimination A. Listen to the sound you're studying. Click on a play button to hear two words. If they both have that sound, click yes. If they do not, click no.
eager, easy,
Do they have the same E sound? Yes, that's correct.
even, ape,
I say no.
keep, cat,
I say yes. Oh, sorry, it's incorrect. I can play it again.
keep, cat,
And I can also reset an exercise and try it again. Listening discrimination B looks like this. Choose which of the highlighted words is said by clicking on it.
the sheep is very white,
So I click either this one or this one. I'll click S-H-E-E-P, sheep. Correct.
the sheep is very white,
Number 2.
I can easily fill it,
Oh, I made a mistake. Sorry, incorrect. So I can play it again.
I can easily fill it,
To reset it, click the button at the bottom, and you can try again. Stare. Syllables, timing, articulation, intonation, and rhythm. All right, here we have something about strong stress and weak stress. So we're talking about stressed and unstressed syllables. Strong and weak stresses in a sentence.
she's a teacher,
Notice la, 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 la. So you see big, small, small, big, small.
she's a teacher,
She is a teacher. You can go through these by clicking on a number or by clicking on an arrow. Here at the bottom, you'll have your record button so you can record your voice and compare it to the model. Here's some sentences from level 1.
she is happy,
E, she is happy. Again, at the bottom of the page, you will see the record button. Level 2 sentences.
she seems happy,
E. So this one has 3 E sound. She seems happy. Again, you can record your voice and compare it with the model. Those are the exercises within level 2 sentences of pronunciation power. Be sure to do the speech test because the speech test will let you find out where your strengths and weaknesses are. When you find your results in the pronunciation power, you will be able to tailor the lessons to something that will really suit your own ability to pronounce English. All right, that's an introduction to pronunciation power. I hope you enjoy the software. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, I thought I'd now show you some screens of the speech test. So when you're online, then you can do the speech test, or this is for an individual, right? So you have an individual do the speech test. And this is really good. Some of us here are working with individuals. We do our own tutoring and we can have them do this speech test. What it does is it gives you a lot of sentences. There are a lot of sentences that come up on your screen. So it's not good for beginners, right? Beginners won't know any of these words, but it's good for people who are like more intermediate and advanced, because then they'll be able to read. So a part of the problem of doing a test like this is, of course, about the reading ability of your learners. But that aside, we can have the learners read the sentences one by one, and then there's AI that scores the ability to pronounce different phonemes. So these are some results that I've had from various clients that I work with. And it shows up here, like here's a speech test, and you can see that some of the phonemes are orange. And those are kind of sort of difficult. And some of them are red, and those are pretty difficult. And some of them are not colored, or maybe they're supposed to show up as green. I'm not sure. They're not showing up as green here, but those are the ones that they did okay on. So here is an example, and it also gives you some idea of expected results. So it shows native speakers can be 85% or higher, very advanced students 75%, advanced speakers 65, and so on and so on and so on. All right. So here's an example, and this person comes out to be what looks like 55%. And here's another example of somebody whose phonemic accuracy is much less than the first one, and it shows up as 26%. It's like, oh, where do you start with this particular learner? There's just different. Here's one that's at 84%. So that's almost native speaker. And if I'm working with a student of this level, probably I'm going to be spending more time on suprasegmentals and presentation skills and, all persuasive speaking and all sorts of other things that I wouldn't really spend too much time on phonemic problems. But, as individuals come to me, they have their own idea of what they need to learn. And then you have to add yours on if you're an individual teacher trying to persuade them. It's okay if you pronounce something like not 100% like I do, but if you get your stress and intonation, people will understand you. So, I mean, this is something that is helpful, I think, for learners to know, because sometimes learners know they don't speak right, but they don't know what it is they don't know, right? They don't know what it is they do wrong. They just know that, I don't know, people are always asking me to repeat it or say it again, or somehow they indicate that they don't understand me. And that's where you come in, because you as a pronunciation guru can understand or help them assess which things are most troublesome and where to focus their attention. So that is a little bit about pronunciation power, also known as e-English, e-English.com. So again, at the end, I'm going to give you some information where you can find out more about it, or if you're interested in getting a trial version, 30-day trial version, then you may also do that. The third thing that I want to introduce to you is something that is free, and we like free. Does anybody like free? Yeah. Okay. So, and do you know anything about, do you know the letters H, V, P, T? Does that make any sense to you? What is H, V, P, T? Patrick, you know what that means, right?
Sure. It's high variability input. Wait, high variability pronunciation teaching, maybe?
Almost, yes. It's high variability pronunciation training.
Training, okay.
Right, high variability pronunciation training. So high variability, I can't even get the letters in the right order, HVPT. T. So this is something that researchers in the area of pronunciation and phonetics have done a lot of studies about. And I'm just going to show this one article by Ron Thompson of Brock University in Canada. It's a proven technique about which every language teacher and learner ought to know. Okay, not everybody really knows this. It's not something that's in textbooks, really. It's something that, you know, I learned about from being in the field of pronunciation, going to a lot of conferences and hanging out with people who do research in these areas. So it is a technique that's not just English, right? It's for any language learner. It's to teach learners to perceive. So perception is really important, right? So in order to produce a sound, you got to know how to perceive it. If you don't know the difference between this one and that one, then it's hard to make a difference. It's like E and it, right? So sheep and ship, a lot of those learners that we work with don't hear the difference because it doesn't exist in their languages. And we have to train them to hear the distinction, to perceive them before we can expect them to actually produce the differences. So one of the things that has been discovered and proven is that when we give students or learners a chance to hear over and over different sounds, they will start perceiving them. And the next thing is, when they start perceiving them, they can then begin to change their own production, right? So this is English accent coach Ron Thompson, who will be here with us in April to talk about another one of the areas that he knows a lot about. He is the one who developed, with the help of other pronunciation experts in the field, this software called English Accent Coach. And it trains your ear, or it trains your brain actually, to start hearing, perceiving, and recognizing new sounds, of course, in this case, in English. And we were talking about different voices, right, and different accents. Well, in high variability pronunciation training, there are many voices. There's a whole bunch of male voices, a whole bunch of female voices, and they don't all have the same accent. I'm sure you know that even native speakers don't have the same accent. We have our idiosyncratic accent. So when I'm teaching pronunciation, I always coach my students. I know I want you to be able to speak better, speak more intelligibly so people will understand you, but do not expect that you're going to sound like Marsha Chan, right? Because nobody is going to sound exactly like me. And so those of us in the room who are native speakers or highly advanced speakers, we all have our own differences. And so in the high variability pronunciation training methodology, there are many voices, and we begin to associate sounds with a particular phoneme. So let me just do the tour thing so you can see what goes on with this. So it's an online tour to help us with our pronunciation of vowels and consonants. And I want to say that the vowels and consonants that are selected to be in this program are not as many as in the last program. The reason is because some vowels and consonants do not cause learners problems. I mean, through the research, we know that some vowels and consonants are much trickier. So put for some learners, E and if for everybody, right? But other vowel sounds are not so key. For example, because of the collapse of all and ah, as in caught and caught. I mean, I still say caught and caught, but my kids do not. My children, who are all adults, they have grown up in the newer environment, and that all ah has gone away. So those are not distinctions that are in this particular software. Another thing that is not hard for people to hear is the sound right? I mean, is a lot easier to understand. We're not talking about pronouncing it, but understanding it or perceiving it. So there's some vowel sounds that you say, oh, they're not included. Well, that's the reason, because research has shown that typically it's not a problem of perception. So there, just, to start out with that. So it allows you to play these sorts of games where you listen to sounds and try to identify them. And you can choose either vowels or consonants. So let me show you. These are the consonant sounds that are included, and each
happy,
has
nothing, decide,
words that you can read and
hung,
hear. All right, so you know what those symbols are.
such,
But I'm going to go beyond that because I'm going to assume that you already know what those are. And then you'll get a report card, which is green, good, and satisfactory for is yellow, and red means, you know, you really need to work on these. All right, so consonants would be like these, and vowels would look like those. Okay, let's say if we want to play the game, we would go to here. Let's play consonants. Oh, no, let's play vowels. Okay, okay, so I put my login here, and oh well, okay, I'll try as a guess. Now, short would be only 20, standard is 100. So when I taught my students how to use it, I showed them using the short, but when I had them do an assignment, I asked them to do the standard, and I said if they felt highly motivated, they could do the long. Now, for some people, standard was great and they did it and they went on to, and for other people, they thought it was excruciating and they couldn't go beyond 100. That's okay. You know, every student is at a different level, especially in their expectations. But let's say we do this one. The thing we want to do is to decide, well, what sounds do we want to hear? Do we want to try attack all of them? Or do we just want to try to difference? Like, I'm having trouble with these two sounds, and so those are the ones that I want to do. Now, we have options to use colors. You see color stuff here, or you have the option to use the symbols to go with. All right, now if we wait, let's I'm talking, sorry, I'm talking a little bit faster than my brain, or my brain, they're not going at the same speed here. Let's see. What are we doing here? Pausing. Oh, resume. Okay. All right. What am I supposed to do? Click the right sound to continue. Okay.
he,
Oh, all right. I guess I didn't choose my sound, so I have to listen to that sound and.
hey,
Oh, which one of these is it? Maybe that one?
he,
This one?
he,
Okay, now if I do the incorrect one, I get that. Okay, here, so what's happening is I'm hearing the sound and then am I clicking on the chart to identify it. Now, notice that they're not words, right? They're just sounds. So level 1 shows H plus a vowel. So it'll be he, he, ha, who, ha, ha, ha. Those are the sounds that will be there, and they'll be spoken by a lot of different speakers. So even as a native speaker, a listener of English, I did not get 100% because some of the accents or idiosyncratic pronunciations of native speakers were not familiar to me, especially when there's only a short syllable of he, right? So that's okay. I mean, one of the things is I have to tell the students, don't worry, even I, as a native speaker, don't get 100 on this because there's some accents, and, you know, just talk about how when you hear only a syllable, you're not getting a lot of information as if you were hearing a whole word or a whole sentence and you could figure out from context. There's no context here. Now, level 1 is that, and then it goes up to other levels where you get different consonants at the beginning, and then later on, you go up and you'll get words. So it tries to give you these attempts to listen and perceive and be able to parse the sounds that you are hearing. Okay, these sounds belong to the phoneme called oo. And these sounds belong to the phoneme that's and that way, as I work through it, typically what happens as a learner, I walk through it and I'm listening and pronouncing it. Don't you know that your students often, if they're language students, sometimes they want to repeat right away. And there are times where I say, don't repeat right away, just practice on perceiving. Well, this game asks you to just perceive and listen. But then because we're adults who like to talk, even kids do, we start to repeat it, right? And that way our pronunciation becomes a little bit more focused, and we'll be able to hear and perceive the difference and produce the difference better between, say, E and I, between and better than before. But it does take practice. And since this is a free version, it's really great to you to try it out and have students do it. So when I was using it with students, I would do a couple of them in class and show them how maybe I'm not perfect, but I'm a pretty high scorer, right? I mean, just to give them the feel that, this is not about perfection, but getting closer to understanding and perceiving phonemes and being able to distinguish them. And then I would assign them to do, maybe in our other material, we'd be working on the difference between a and eh. Then I would ask them to work on those particular sounds. If we're working for individuals, then I know that this particular individual has problems with the sound ah and ah. Then I'll have them work on those particular sounds. Now, of course, you can play this with the consonants as well. So this is similar. And then there's this game called Echo, which is, I guess, kind of cute because there are people who like to do the just play the game thing. And this is more motivating for many of our young, okay, I'm talking and speaking. What happened? Oh, okay. So I'm supposed to, let's see. Okay, restart. New, let me do new. Oh, no, wait.
Heh.
Oh, click this one. Oh, I didn't do that right. Okay, so here's the game. Obviously, I'm trying to talk to you and do this game at the same time, and I'm not doing a very good job on it. I listen, and then I...
Hey.
Okay.
Hey. Ho.
Ho. Oh, that was this one. Oh, man. Okay, so it's timing. All right, so I wasn't doing it very quickly, but this one is a timed game where you get to... it's more of a game thing. I'm not doing a very good thing on the gaming part, but that appeals to some of our learners more than the other one. Some people are more structured and they like to go through da 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 da, and others are more like, this is no fun. Let's do the fun part. And so, doing a game thing. But the game way is you have 4 phonemes, whereas the other way you can choose, any number of phonemes. It can be all of them or just 2 of them at a time. And I like to do 2 at a time just because it's hard to focus on so many things, right? The more advanced you are, the more you can take on a few more items. All right, so that in a nutshell is a little bit about English accent coach. Let's see, do we have any questions in the chat? If I've missed anything, Patrick, help me out with answering them or asking them.
I don't think so. I don't see anything for this particular program.
Okay, well, if
I
you
just
guys...
wanted to say that it's a really good one. I mean, all 3 of them are, but I've been using the English accent coach with students who, in the beginning weren't even able to reproduce any of the sounds that I was trying them to do because they couldn't hear the difference between them, and then magically learned how to do it in the end. So it's a wonderful resource.
Okay, so you've had a good experience with your students trying to get a sense of what something sounds like.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
That's cool. I know. I'll tell you a couple of experiences that I've had with it. I've also taught a very difficult student who wanted to be right, and he was mad that he wasn't right, and so he blamed the software. Man, I said, I don't think it's the software. Well, that's somebody who didn't understand about perception, right? So I think we're on the same page here about being able to perceive something, perceive sounds before you can make a distinction and a difference and an improvement in your production, right? Okay, so that's just one of the ways. I mean, Carla a couple of months ago gave us a talk about how using software that shows things on the screen is really helpful, especially for pretty advanced students who can do the cognitive thing about what something looks like and how that matches up with voice. So there are a lot of different materials out there. These are just a few that I selected for today because I found that sometimes we list off so many pieces of software that we are kind of like deer headlights, and we don't really get a good enough picture about, well, what does each one of them do and how can we use them? So in future sessions, I think we're going to also have some, Patrick's going to tell us about some that are like on mobile devices, particularly because lots of new things have come out. Yeah, so any of you who would like to request for the free trials of AM English or Pronunciation Power, then look in the chat and there is a link that you can go to. Questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations? Turn on your mic and speak up.
Well, thank you so much. I haven't used the term perception. I guess in my class I've used like awareness, and we talk about metacognition in our learning in our programs. So then I use, the term metacognitive, being aware and heightening that awareness. But I think I'm going to start using this also, this term of perception, so they can see, how that's a tool for their pronunciation and their listening.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that comment. Anybody else have a comment or question or?
Well, I remember
Yes.
a very interesting experience. A student I knew, a PhD student who was studying applied linguistics many years ago from Japan. And he never made a mistake with R and L. R as in, well, okay, R and L, and
yeah,
he knew what to do and where the sounds were supposed to occur and so on, but he could not perceive the difference. He said I think that's very unusual, but he could not hear the difference. He just knew what to do.
He knew what to do, but he didn't hear the difference?
Correct, yeah.
That's interesting.
And I found that fascinating.
That's very fascinating, yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, in all our conversations, he never made a mistake. He never got one. Said one for the other. But
it's interesting how he might have taught him. Well, one of the things that's so good about R and L is that there is only a one-to-one correspondence between R on the page, right, and L on the page. So if he was really a good eye learner, and his cognition was that level, connect the letter to the sound.
Yeah.
Then if he's a book learner, then that could have been his hook, right?
Yeah. And he may have had to do a lot of training to, kind of achieve a level of mastery with that. But
yeah, that is interesting. Cool. Yeah. Should I tell you about what we're gonna show you? What's coming up next? Yes. What is coming up next? Okay, so in our future top calendar, we have next session February 18th. So mark your calendar for the 18th. And we are calling this Off the Top Shelf, a review of pronunciation textbooks. Or maybe I should say Off the Top Shelf. Is that a better focus? A review of pronunciation textbooks. So this is in response to our question. Thank you, Alejandro, for putting that on our message board, because it gives us, well, okay, this is what we need to know about. Although we don't have much in the way of new materials in the recent past, Patrick, you're going to tell us something about the studies that you've done and summarize some pros and cons or advantages. Every book has advantages over others, so that would be a cool thing, right? And March, we are cogitating what we're going to do in March. And in April, we already have a subject, which is pronunciation teaching. Whose ethical domain is it anyway? and Jennifer Foote and Ron Thompson, who have written an article about this very topic, will be here to speak to us. So those are the things that are coming up in our future. Now, in the meanwhile, we're going to have CATESOL is going to have a spring conference. I can't tell you when it's going to be because it hasn't been stated yet. But I have this feeling that it's going to be in the spring, like March or April. So that'll be an opportunity for us to do some more get-togethers. And if you have any suggestions for what we should do with our top gatherings, we're just all ears.
Did you just say March or April, or I guess I'd heard that the CATESOL, I thought it was going to be April and May. I can't remember, but
okay. So I think it's going to be in April. Let's say this, because I wear many hats in CATESOL, as you probably know, and one of my hats is event registrar.